I'm AP Townley, and this is Roleplay Culture. In 1981, the folks that made D&D at the time put out a book called the Fiend Folio. Within this book, a species would make their first appearance, the Gith. One of the subspecies, if you will, the Githyanki, featured very heavily. They were cosmic conquerors that dwelled on the astral plane. Once subservient to the Illithids, now they held the slaver's lash. Among the Githyanki were a popular type of warrior, the Gish, who were essentially wizard assassins. They blended both sword and sorcery, masters of magic and the blade. And since then, players have been trying to replicate this type of play style ever since. The fighter wizards are very popular. Even if I don't think that's a true representation of what a Gish was intended to be, we'll get to that in the next episode. It definitely represents what it is now. So what represents what a Gish is now and how to play one? I think that it's a character with the extra attack feature and the ability to cast spells. Yeah, that's it. And the easiest way to do that is to be a fighter with the Eldritch Knight subclass. Whether that's a good choice or not, it's up to you. Maybe we'll do a video in the future examining Gish builds in detail, but this video is choosing spells for the Eldritch Knight, specifically underrated spells. The Eldritch Knight is very restricted in what spells they choose, how high a level they are, and so on. They are what we call 1/3 casters, so less than a paladin or ranger. They only get up to 4th level spells, though they do get a few cantrips. They choose spells from the wizard list, and those spells must come from the Abjuration or Evocation School of Magic, though cantrips are not restricted. There is an exception, though. One of their spell choices at 1st level, and later at 8th, 4th, and 20th, can come from any school of magic. So like I said, it's a lot of restrictions. So let's discuss some underrated spells for the Eldritch Knight. I'll try to be specific about what school of magic they come from, as that will affect when you take this spell if it's outside the normally accepted schools of magic. You will know quite a few spells compared to the number of spell slots you have access to, but for spells outside of Abjuration and Evocation, you're only going to know 1 per level, and that makes it really tough. So here are 5 underrated spells for the Eldritch Knight in D&D 5e. Like usual, we'll choose one spell, levels 1 to... Oh wait, this isn't like usual. This subclass only gets spells up to 4th level. Okay. Level 1 to 4 and a cantrip. Yeah, guess we're doing cantrips now. Number 0, Lightning Lure. Cantrips are sometimes known as 0th level spells, and you start with 2. You only get 3 total, so you better make them count. Now, of course, Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade are basically tailor-made for the Eldritch Knight, but we want to choose something a little unusual and unexpected. This evocation cantrip takes an action to cast and has a 15-foot radius centered on you. You can lash out with a whip of lightning to a creature within the radius, and if they fail their strength save, they are pulled 10 feet towards you. That should put them right beside you, in which case they take 1d8 lightning damage, and extra damage dice at levels 5, 11, 17, as usual. This spell only requires verbal components, which is important to note. As spellcasters, you may need to cast spells while wielding a sword and shield, which can be a problem unless you take the Warcaster feat. So you may need to pay attention to when you have a hand free and when you need a hand free. So why take this cantrip? Well, more than likely, the Eldritch Knight is going to want to be up and close and personal with their enemies. But that's not always going to be possible. In fact, a smart enemy is going to do everything they can to keep you away from them. But Lightning Lure can even those scales. Enemies that stand on ledges, out of your reach, or if you're mired in mud or quicksand, can find themselves having an up-close and personal conversation with your axe, way faster than they might want. So when a flying enemy is taunting over you, thinking your blade can't reach them, oh, how wrong they are. But whatever you do, don't take True Strike. There's underrated, and then there's garbage, and True Strike is garbage. Number 1, Alarm. Let's be honest. You're going to take the shield spell with one of your known spells and probably find familiar with another. And that one will be your 1 first level spell from whatever school of magic you want. So stick with me here. Our spell has to come from abjuration or evocation, and we probably want to avoid anything with saving throws or spell attack rolls, if possible, as our intelligence, which is our spellcasting stat, it's not going to be that great. So I present this sadly unappreciated spell, the Alarm spell. This first level abjuration spell has a casting time of a minute and a range of 30 feet. It lasts for 8 hours with no concentration. You can set the alarm to alert you mentally or audibly, your choice. You put the alarm on a door, window, or 20-foot cube. If something tiny or larger touches or enters that area, the alarm alerts you. Now, this spell is a ritual, but sadly, Eldritch Knights don't get access to ritual uses of a spell. But that's okay, because generally, we're going to want to use this spell at the end of the day with whatever spell slots we have left to guard our camp while we sleep. It gives our characters some utility outside of combat. I will say, if you have a wizard with a spellbook in your party, it's probably more efficient for them to take this spell, as it wouldn't require them to use any spell slots. If that's the case, just choose Absorb Elements to have some of elemental damage types, and give your attack some of that elemental damage. It's pretty rare that a secondary use of a spell like this is used. I will note that there are some ways to get access to the ritual caster ability, such as multiclassing with a wizard, which many Eldritch Knights do. Number 2, Enlarge, Reduce. Choosing spells at this level is hard. As though there are a few evocation spells, there's only one abjuration spell, Arcane Lock. So yikes. And for our one choice outside of the accepted magic schools, so many choices that are good. Misty Step, Invisibility, etc. But as good as those spells are, I'm going to suggest another choice. Enlarge Reduce is a second level transmutation spell that takes an action to cast, has a range of 30 feet, and lasts for a minute with concentration. You can choose a creature or an unattended object within range to grow or shrink by one size category. There's more math involved than that, but essentially that's what it does. If you choose to enlarge a creature, in addition to taking up more space on the battlefield, it will also get advantage on strength checks and saves, as well as do an extra 1d4 weapon damage. Being reduced does pretty much the opposite. Now, this could be a buffing spell to ourselves or an ally, but I would probably use the spell in this way only in emergencies. I see this as more of a Swiss Army knife style spell. You could shrink down boulders to move past them, or enlarge one to block the way. You could shrink down yourself so you can move through tight spaces. You could shrink an enemy to debuff their weapon attacks, though they do get a con save to resist. This is one of those spells where creativity really shows what it can do, and the trouble it can get you out of or into. Number 3, Gaseous Form. At this point, we're at least 13th level, 14th with this specific spell, as it would be an alternate magic choice. So spells that do damage or target saving throws are really going to struggle to have any kind of effect. This third level transmutation spell takes an action to cast, has a range of touch, so it can't affect others, and lasts for an hour with concentration. You can turn a willing creature, including yourself, into a misty cloud with a flying speed of 10 feet. Slow, I know, but any flying is better than none. As this mist, you'll have resistance to non-magic damage and advantage on strength, dex, and con saves. You whisper your way through another person's space, small holes, narrow openings, even cracks in the wall. Interestingly, liquid acts as a solid surface. While in this form, you can't speak or manipulate objects at all, nor can you attack or cast spells. But that's okay, because this spell is mostly an infiltration and exploration spell with some defenses built in. At this level, getting into secure areas or out of deadly traps could be really difficult. Being able to turn yourself into some wispy smoke and just float through a crack in the wall before spikes close in on you would be pretty handy. Sure, the rest of your party would still be in trouble, but that's future you's problem. It would also be a good way to scout or infiltrate a hostile area. You could squeeze under doors or keyholes, and you'd be pretty hard to see. You just look like a mist, and if they do realize what you are, you're pretty hard to hurt, and hopefully you can just fly out of reach. Number 4, Mordenkainen's Private Sanctum. If you thought the last choice was hard, we'll hold on to your armored underoos. You're at 19th level minimum at this point. We're not even looking for underrated spells. We're just looking for spells, period, that would have any meaningful effect in this tier of play. This is, honestly, the best I could come up with. This 4th level Abjuration spell takes 10 minutes to cast, has a range of 120 feet, and lasts all freaking day. 24 hours without concentration. It makes an area up to 100 feet on each side magically secure. And considering the level we're at, we're going to need that protection. You can choose from a list of protections, any or all of them. They include sound not passing through the warded area, the barrier appearing occluded so that vision is blocked, including dark vision, divination sensors cannot appear inside the warded area or pass through the barrier, creatures inside the barrier can't be targeted by divination spells, teleportation is blocked inside and out, planar travel can also be blocked. A lot of these protections target high-level abilities, but considering under 19th level, I'd say it's definitely a concern. Many of these protections go both ways as well. The teleport blocker keeps your allies from teleporting just as much as the enemy, so it's something to consider. Becomes a bit of a double-edged sword, but that keeps things interesting. Being spied on by the BBEG, having bad guys / demons teleport or plane shift into your camp while you sleep is a very real possibilities. So being able to cast this spell to protect your party with your one meager 4th level spell slot could be good utility outside of combat, which I'm all about. This spell is also one of those that can become constant over time. If you cast this in the same spot every day for a year, it becomes permanent. I don't see this coming up very much, but could be useful. Well, that's my take on 5 underrated spells for the Eldritch Knight Fighter in D&D 5e. If you want more videos like this, well, you're going to have to subscribe, ring that bell, smash that like button, leave your comments below, and I'll see you in the parlor.